Number 10. The Maine Monster. Back in the 19th century, there was a creepy monster in the state of Maine, witnessed by lumberjacks that were out working in the woods, and it seems to have vanished from the local lore. While working in the dense forests of the northeastern United States, woodsmen, lodgers, and trappers began witnessing something that they'd called the Tote Road Shagama. This strange animal has skinny legs that end in hooves, with huge and hairy arms that have bare paws on the ends. It's also apparently able to walk on both its hands and feet, which confused woodsmen because they couldn't understand how a moose track suddenly switched to a bear track, then back again a quarter mile through the woods. The most reliable sighting was made by Gus Demo, who lived in Old Town. He was a hunter and a trapper in Maine for 40 years and was the first to describe the animal in detail. While there's never been any evidence of its existence, up until a few decades ago, the rural people of Maine were well aware of the bizarre hybrid skulking through their backyards. Nobody knows what happened to the creature or why it vanished, but it hasn't been seen in years. Is it hiding, or could it be hibernating in some cave? Number 9. The Goatman. The Prince George's County Goatman is another bizarre monster that terrorized rural folks in the forests. The creature resided deep in Maryland, and according to the locals, it scared lovers at night, chased around teenagers, and sometimes even decapitated innocent dogs. There are a few different stories relating to the Goatman's origin, with some claiming he's a mystical beast like Bigfoot, while others say he was just a lonely goat herder who lost his mind and began roaming through the woods scaring people. Either way, it's insanely creepy. The first public story of the Goatman was in 1971 in Prince George's local news. The writer of the news article, Karen Hostler, exposed how the Goatman was hiding in the woods near Fletchertown Road. Just weeks after the article came out, a dog was discovered decapitated near that very road. This led to a collective fear that a bizarre goat/human hybrid was on the loose. Sightings were reported with regularity. The Washington Post wrote an article about the beast, and the townspeople cowered in their homes at night, too scared to leave. But eventually, the fear diminished, and the legend of the Goatman was quieted once more. Depending on who you ask, the creature is still stalking the woods around Prince George. Number 8. Humanoid Freak. A mysterious humanoid creature was recently witnessed stalking a moose at night, creating panic on a worldwide scale. Nobody knows if the video footage is legit or not, but it's scary to watch nonetheless. The humanoid creature in the footage appears to be around 6 feet tall, though it's crouched over like some kind of spider goblin. It can be seen creeping out of the woods behind a moose, which had stopped behind a remote and isolated road in the middle of the Canadian wilderness. The humanoid is pale, twisted, and outright horrifying. Amazingly, the woman who took the footage, local resident Audrey Tanguay Fretchett, didn't even notice the freak of nature until she looked at the footage later on. She was beyond terrified. If she had seen it at the time, she probably would have sped away screaming. Nobody has been able to identify the freaky thing, though some have said it could be the legendary rake beast, a Canadian monster kind of like Bigfoot, except way more freaky, looking like a naked mountain troll or Gollum from The Lord of the Rings. Number 7. Bigfoot in Oregon. A hiker in Oregon may have just come face to face with Bigfoot. Everyone knows Bigfoot lives somewhere in the expansive wilderness of the Pacific Northwest. This is a hotspot for most Bigfoot sightings. Yet somehow, nobody has ever managed to get solid video evidence of the hairy monster. The same can be said about the footage taken by Mike Bodwitz, who shared his frightening encounter on TikTok. According to Mike himself, he was walking through a ravine when he noticed something big and scary watching him from the shadows of the trees. He couldn't tell if the creature was male or female, but it was definitely huge and menacing. He took a quick video of himself with the thing in the background. Unfortunately, all that can be seen in the smartphone footage is a blurry figure that could be a Bigfoot or could possibly just be a tree stump. We may never know if Bigfoot is real, or just what kind of huge and unidentified monster is hiding in the forests of the Pacific Northwest. But this is as good a proof as any. Do you believe in Bigfoot? If so, where do you think he hides? Have you or anyone you know ever seen him? Let us know in the comments section down below. And if you're liking this video, be sure to hit the thumbs up and subscribe button if you haven't already. Number 6. Alien Moth Monster. An alien-like moth monster has been spotted in Indonesia, and it's way beyond terrifying. A man living in Bali found what he can only describe as a tentacle monster living inside his house. He found the creature scaling up his wall, looking like a moth-spider-octopus hybrid. It was about a foot long and probably went into his house to take shelter from the rainstorm that was happening at the time. The unbelievable insect-like freak had what appeared to be 4 slimy and hairy tentacles coming out of its butt, a pair of wispy wings, and a small collection of legs at its front. The homeowner owner that caught the disturbing thing claimed that he had never seen anything like it before, and that he hopes he never sees anything like it again. And even though he never wants to see it again, he had this to say about it: "I will let it stay in my house, but only for the night. I don't want it to scare my guests away. It's not something I've ever seen before. I don't think it comes from the neighborhood." Usually, people wouldn't hesitate to squash something like this as soon as they saw it, but this guy has a big heart. However, the crazy monster that was soon identified, experts suggest the creature was a type of moth from the family Arctiinae. The disgusting tentacles coming out of its backside may actually be scent organs that is used to attract mates. In other words, the tentacles are its noses. Even if this monster is real, it's honestly freakier than anything else we've looked at today. Can you imagine letting an alien moth bigger than your head stay the night in your house? Number 5. Momo the Monster. Roughly 50 years ago, Momo the Monster was sighted for the first time. It happened in the summer of 1971. According to the Louisiana Area Historical Society, Joan Mills and Mary Ryan were going down Highway 79 when they stopped to have a little picnic. It was in the middle of their picnic that something they described as half ape, half man came creeping out of the woods and nearly scared them to death. Ever since then, residents of both Louisiana and Missouri have claimed to witness a creature who stands on 2 feet, stinks worse than an old goat, and growls like a black bear. The first incident was so random that the police took it seriously. They combed the area for evidence of the monster, simply assuming that there was a big angry bear in the area. However, they never found anything. In 1972, one witness claimed that the monster had a very large tail, which conveniently sweeps away all of its footprints. And as absurd as the whole thing sounds, there were about 100 people who gathered together at City Hall to put together a search party for Momo the Monster, as the locals were terrified that there was a thing in the woods threatening to eat their kids and pets. But alas, they never found it. Search parties have since stopped looking, but that doesn't mean whatever it was won't make another appearance in the future. Number 4. Sea serpent. A creepy sea serpent recently washed up on a beach in Texas, and locals don't have the slightest clue as to what it is. The beast in question washed up on Padre Island. The eyewitnesses thought it was some kind of snake or eel, though it was honestly so weird to look at that they couldn't properly guess. Usually, when an unknown animal washes up on the shore, people post pictures online, and experts quickly give the proper identification. But in this case, the experts are just as stumped as everybody else. Here's the deal with the creature. It looks like a snake, yes. However, it's completely pale and has a body that is way too thick to belong to any snake. Padre Island Seashore Group thought it was a Texas blind snake, which does look kind of similar, but that turned out not to be the case. Some people say it's an unidentified species of snake eel, which buries itself in the sand and eats small fish. But despite all the speculation, nothing has really been ascertained. So far, as the experts are concerned, it's a snake-eel hybrid, and that's it. Sightings like this make us wonder what other kinds of creepy species are lurking about, just waiting to be identified. After all known species were once unknown. Number 3. Human face fish. In China, a weird fish with a human face recently freaked some people out. In a small village, the unbelievable fish was captured on video by a woman in the Mayo village. The fish appears to be a completely normal carp in every regard, except for the fact that it has a human head, complete with a pointy nose, 2 dark eyes, and a mouth. Nobody knows how this could have happened. Some have claimed that the fish was a result of radioactivity in the water. Others speculated that maybe a human somehow figured out how to mate with a carp, though we shouldn't really even entertain that theory. And others are just simply stumped. There probably is no real logical explanation for the freak of nature, other than just that. It's a total anomaly. Maybe once every few hundred years, a carp is born with the features of a human being? What do you think? Do you have any theories about this weird human fish? Let us know your thoughts in the comments section down below. Number 2. The figure on the bridge. Something bizarre was recently captured walking at night across a bridge in India, and locals can't decide if it was an alien or supernatural creature. A video was taken of the paranormal entity displaying a curious white figure walking across a bridge, looking like a ghost. It was strange because it happened in full view of a lot of people. The video even shows cars driving across the bridge and slowing down to gawk at the white specter. But clearly, it couldn't have been a ghost, as a ghost would never let itself be seen by so many curious citizens, right? Several people who witnessed the figure on the bridge that day said it was probably a witch, while others are positive it was an alien trying to return to its ship. In either case, the strange video ended, and we don't know what became of the figure on the bridge. According to Newsweek, we're still waiting for the video's validity to be confirmed. But to be quite honest, there have been several videos recently, especially in India, showing creepy pale figures wandering alone at night, seemingly lost. Could these all be stray aliens trying to find their way back to their ships? Or something else? And number 1. Creature in a can of tuna. A woman named Zoe, a resident of Nottingham, England, opened a can of tuna for lunch and nearly screamed when she saw a bizarre creature staring back at her. Terrified, Zoe took a picture of the curious animal and sent it to the local newspapers, asking them to help figure out why there was a living monster inside of her can of tuna. According to CBS News, she also reached out to the company that manufactured the tuna. The company quickly apologized for the mysterious creature and said that if she sent the can of tuna back, they would look into the matter. However, that probably didn't make Zoe feel much better, considering the thing in her tuna looked like a tiny space alien. It took a bit of time, but the manufacturer did eventually get back to Zoe, apologizing for what they claimed was a megalopa inside her tuna. This is a tiny type of crab, and though it poses no safety risks, it's probably not what someone wants to eat for lunch. But here's where things get a little crazy. Experts from the Natural History Museum in London had a different answer for what the creature was. They said it was a tongue-eating louse, a kind of marine parasite which attaches itself to a fish's tongue and then steals the fish's food. If Zoe had eaten that can of tuna, she may have been left with a parasite attached to her tongue, or worse, no tongue at all.
Number 10. The Bigfoot of Vietnam. During the Vietnam War, soldiers saw a lot of terrifying things, some of them proven to be real, and some of them living at the edge of legend and fact. One of those bizarre nightmare monsters is a mysterious Bigfoot-like monster that lived in the jungle. It's known as Batatut, a creepy beast that skulks the forests of Vietnam and Laos and is rarely seen by humans. The Batatut stands about 6 feet, 2 meters tall. It's hairy and looks like an ape, and it's apparently highly aggressive. The first sightings of the Batatut came from the early 1900s, but then during the Vietnam War, because there was so much guerrilla warfare going on in the jungle, soldiers continuously found themselves bumping into what they thought was the Batatut. The most legendary encounter came in the early days of the war. A group of men from the 101st Airborne Division were taking a break in a mountainous region of the jungle when they felt something stalking them. At first, they believed it to be an ambush of the North Vietnamese soldiers. Instead, they witnessed a monster with red hair, dark eyes, and a gaping mouth. It looked at the soldiers, who thought it could have been an orangutan, and then vanished back into the jungle, making a ruckus as it went. The soldiers were shocked, not knowing if they'd witnessed a rare jungle primate or the legendary Batatut. It seems likely that it was just a bizarre gorilla-like creature, but perhaps there was some truth to the legend of the Batatut. We may never know for sure. Number 9. The Giant of Kandahar. As far as anyone knows, the Giant of Kandahar is classified by the US government. At least its existence is classified, along with a deadly encounter that the giant had with a group of United States soldiers operating in Afghanistan. This is what allegedly happened. In 2002, a squadron of soldiers went missing deep in the desert. A special ops task force was sent to find them. The task force eventually located a large cave in the middle of nowhere, with military equipment scattered about inside. As the team entered the cave, they were confronted by a humanoid giant 15 feet, 5 meters tall. It impaled one of the soldiers on a giant spear and then turned on the rest of the squadron. Luckily, these were special ops soldiers and weren't scared of a big burly monster. They eventually took the thing down, though it took them concentrating their M4 machine guns on it for nearly 30 seconds. That's a whole lot of firepower. With the giant dead, the soldiers airlifted it back to the base using a helicopter. Nobody knew where the giant came from or how it had been living alone inside a cave in the middle of nowhere. To this day, there's no official record of the giant or the incident. You can try to find out information about the beast, but the records are incomplete and spotty. It may just be another one of those stories that we'll find out about when the government decides to declassify the information they do have. Number 8. The Atomic Flatwoods Monster. In 1952, an atomic monster descended on Flatwoods, West Virginia. It was seen once and only once by a group of eyewitnesses. According to History.com, it all happened when a pair of brothers were playing outside and witnessed a red light fall from the sky and crash onto a nearby farm. The youngsters, along with their mother, rushed to see what the light was. So did a few other people from the area. In total, 7 residents witnessed a monster that looked like Frankenstein's creation appear out of the trees. It had a green face, its body was blood red, and it was glowing as if nuclear. It was such a frightening story that it picked up traction all across the country. Sure, most of the witnesses were kids, but there were adults there too, making it a credible story. People in the town were terrified because it was 1952 and the Cold War was in full swing. With the advancement of nuclear bombs, people were terrified that what was witnessed in Flatwoods was an atomic monster. However, the thing was never seen again, and to this day, no explanation has ever been given for what the creature may have been. Number 7. Chased by ghosts. In the 1970s, US Army soldiers destroyed a series of tunnels in Germany to try and get rid of a ghost. That's right, there was a ghost allegedly haunting the people who lived by their base in the small town of Freihung, where there's been a major army installation since 1945. In the center of the town, there used to be an old castle where a noblewoman died many years ago. The castle was demolished and a hotel was built in its place. It was the hotel which the ghost haunted, and specifically the tunnels beneath the hotel. Locals call her the White Lady. In the 70s, this ghost wandered the streets at night, scaring drivers in their cars, and she was seen frequently meandering through the tunnels underneath a local hotel. In an attempt to rid themselves of the ghost, the town turned to the American troops and asked them to demolish the tunnels, which they did. However, the ghost refused to leave. Even after the tunnels were destroyed, the White Lady was still witnessed floating through the hotel at night and sometimes appearing in the dark streets outside. Perhaps if you visit today, you can still see her if you're very lucky. Number 6. Japanese soldiers and the Mermaid. During World War II, Japanese soldiers were occupying the K Islands in Indonesia. This was back in 1943, and these islands were fairly remote, which made for the perfect conditions for spotting something extraordinary. The islands are pretty small, covering an area of only about 500 square miles. Today, these islands are famous for their beautiful beaches. However, in 1943, they were the location of one of the most bizarre mermaid sightings in history. The Japanese soldiers were part of a surveillance team on a remote island. They began witnessing strange creatures in the water near their base. The monsters were unlike anything the soldiers had ever seen before. They had limbs like ordinary people, except their faces were twisted and ugly. They had fish mouths filled with sharp needle-like teeth. They also had skin that was pink like salmon, with spines protruding from their necks and shoulders and heads. Of course, these didn't look like traditional mermaids. They were more like disgusting frog people. The Japanese continued to see them playing in the lagoon, swimming at the beach, and hanging around near the water. Despite their efforts, they were never able to catch one. When they asked the local islanders what the creatures were, they called them orangutan, which translates roughly to human fish. Perhaps these creatures simply died out, or perhaps they never existed. Investigators will have to continue to hunt down any evidence of their existence until they find something concrete. Number 5. UFO Sickness. In 1951, a regiment of soldiers fighting in the Korean War were stationed near the city of Chorwon, about 60 miles from the capital of Seoul. They were preparing to bomb a village with artillery when out of nowhere they witnessed strange lights coming from far up in the hills. It looked like the lights were drifting across the mountain. What happened next would become a mystery for the ages. The lights were only witnessed for a handful of minutes. The lights pulsed and glowed as they drifted over the hills. The soldiers fired their weapons at the floating lights, but nothing happened. Then, they were attacked by ray beams, like searchlights sweeping over the entire platoon. Afterward, the lights were gone and the men had no idea what happened. However, 3 days later, the entire company of soldiers needed to be evacuated to a hospital for medical treatment because they were sick as dogs. They had the symptoms of radiation sickness and were horribly ill. The soldiers did eventually recover, but it was a long and tough road. It was as if they'd been blasted with a high-energy radiation beam. Many believe it was a freak UFO sighting and that the alien ships radiated them. This also happens to be one of the biggest UFO sightings in history because there were at least 42 men who witnessed the event, each with the exact same story. What do you think? 42 people with the same story and the same illness? It's too straightforward to be a total hoax. We may never know unless the government declassifies something incredible or the aliens return. Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. Then remember to subscribe to American Eye if you haven't already. More videos just like this are coming out very soon. Number 4. The Hounds of World War I. During the Battle of Moans in World War I, with the British troops facing off against German soldiers in August of 1914, something strange happened. The British soldiers sustained heavy casualties because of the fighting, but they managed to push the Germans back. But the Germans weren't the only thing the British Army had to fear. When a group of men went to patrol no man's land, the vast and barren area between the two sides of the fighting, they vanished. When their bodies were recovered several days later, teeth marks were discovered on their throats as if they'd been ripped apart by a massive wolf. Then during the night, the soldiers began hearing howling coming from the darkness. From then on, almost every soldier that went into no man's land at night vanished and were found with their throats ripped out. Some soldiers witnessed a huge gray beast like a werewolf wandering not far from the trenches, though nobody actually saw the creature, and eventually it kinda just disappeared. Nobody exactly knows what the Hound of Moans was. It could have been an extremely hungry wolf, a vicious wolf pack, or according to Canadian veteran F.J. Newhouse, a hound from hell created by the German scientist Dr. Gottlieb Hochmüller after switching a wolf's brain with the mind of a madman and setting it loose on British soldiers. Do you think that's even possible? I don't, but then again, who knows for sure? Number 3. Giant Sea Monster. In 1973, US soldiers in Laos killed and captured a very real monster. It wasn't a mythical mermaid or a hound from hell, it was a mythical serpent known to the locals as the Queen of the Naga. The slippery beast was pulled out of the Mekong River and measured at over 24 feet, 7 meters long. It took over 24 men to hold the fish up, angering the locals because they killed their sacred river monster. However, this story seems more likely to be a bit of a fabrication. It's based on the photograph of a group of servicemen who discovered an oarfish stranded on the beach in 1996 near their base in San Diego. The picture is real, the oarfish is real, and it really is a giant mythical sea serpent. But the picture of the soldiers holding it up has been miscaptioned all over the internet. Still, the oarfish is nothing short of legendary. In many Asian countries, they believe an oarfish being found on the shore is an omen of something terrible and destructive to come. Number 2. Yeti Footprints. Members of the army in India recently claimed that they found footprints of the Yeti monster. In a rather unusual move, the army tweeted to roughly 6 million followers that it had identified the very real footprints of the mythical Yeti monster. The post was accompanied with pictures of the prints found near the Makalu base camp high up in the Himalayas. As you can probably imagine, the public ridiculed the army mercilessly. The Yeti is an abominable snowman said to live in the Himalayas and Siberia, though there hasn't been much more concrete evidence of its existence. Actually, nothing scientific proves its existence at all. Online, people mocked the army, asking them if maybe it was one of the giants from Game of Thrones instead of the Yeti, obviously ridiculing them. Nobody knows what the prints were or if they were even animal prints at all. They could have just been indents in the snow. But without further evidence, the social media post was pure speculation. Number 1. Zombie attack. There appears to be a clip floating around on the internet nowadays that shows what is unmistakably a zombie attacking a soldier. The footage was taken using a night vision camera from a police helicopter, which apparently witnessed a man being chased and then ripped apart. The helicopter was monitoring a soldier who was running for his life from a group of rabid zombies. Once the zombies caught up to him, they shoved him to the ground and ripped him limb from limb. Do we know if it's real? No, we don't. It could be a well-edited fraud, or it could be something that should have everyone on the planet fearing for their lives. It's unclear when exactly this footage was taken or if it's legitimate, but the implication that Russia had a close call with a zombie plague is quite frankly terrifying. Number 11. Gorilla on Mars. British tabloids decided it would be a fun idea to stir readers' imaginations in early 2016 when numerous publications featured what they claimed was a photo of a gorilla living on Mars. Captured by NASA's Curiosity rover in 2004, the photo drew little attention until it appeared in a YouTube video posted by a user known only as Mr. Enigma. From there, the claims appeared in far-flung headlines courtesy of mainstream media, adding the so-called gorilla to a growing list of animals people claim to have identified in pictures of the Red Planet. Extraterrestrial enthusiasts reportedly spend hours scouring images from space, looking for anything they can correlate with an Earth-like creature. Some people even believed that the image of the suspected primate also featured a camel, while others suggested that the pair looked like a mother bear and her cub. The outlandish belief that the animals we're familiar with here on Earth could also exist on Mars took off like wildfire. But a closer look at Mr. Enigma's other YouTube videos, which contain claims that he spotted an octopus, an Egyptian statue, and other out-of-place items on the Red Planet, begs the possibility that the content was created by someone who simply has too much time on their hands, spending their days staring at pictures of rock formations until they see something that looks like an animal or an earthly object. Other conspiracy theorists have claimed to spot crabs, lizards, bears, rabbits, and more in photos of the Martian surface. As always, mainstream scientists stand by their claims that these are nothing more than rocks. Number 10. Face on Mars. In 1976, a photo captured in the Cydonia region of Mars sparked international headlines for containing what looks like a human face protruding from the surface. Scientists knew early on that the formation was merely a pile of rocks that gained its eerily human-like appearance through lights and shadows, but that's not a very exciting story. So, of course, as they do, people took their more imaginative ideas and ran with them. As conspiracy theorists clung to their denial that the object was naturally formed, they proposed numerous explanations for the object's origins. The most general argument claims that the face is evidence of life on Mars, while a more specific claim alleges that it is a remnant of an alien civilization, and that nearby rock formations are actually destroyed buildings that once made up a village. Sounds insane, right? Both NASA and the European Space Agency took more detailed pictures of the face, and concluded, not surprisingly, that their original analysis of it was correct. The face is nothing more than some rocks that the light is hitting in just the right way to make them look like a person. In other words, it's an optical illusion. Number 9. Screaming Skull. Captured in the year 2000 by NASA's Chandra X-ray Observatory, this X-ray image depicts what appears to be a demonic flaming face. Known as the Perseus Cluster, it's actually just a collection of thousands of galaxies located 320 million light-years from Earth, which are spread throughout a 100,000 light-year span. Oddly enough, none of the galaxies are visible in the bizarre photo. Instead, the image features a massive 50 million degree cloud of intracluster gas that's bigger than all the galaxies combined, according to NASA's Astronomy Picture of the Day blog. Voids and bright knots within the cloud are what give the picture its skull-like appearance. Scientists believe that there's a supermassive black hole at the center of the Perseus cluster. The dark bubbles forming the skull's eyes and toothless mouth likely resulted from explosions of energy particles that were ejected from the black hole. The brighter white-hued areas represent more intense X-ray radiation, while weaker radiation is responsible for the dimmer red shades. Number 8. Ghost Nebula. Located 1,470 light-years away within the Cepheus constellation in the northern sky, the Ghost Nebula, SH2136, also known as the Ghosts of Cepheus, is a cloud of interstellar dust which is also known as a reflection nebula. It can also be classified as a globule, which is a dark cloud of gas and dust illuminated by the light of nearby stars. Measuring over 2 light-years across, the Ghost Nebula contains several new stars, which give it a brownish hue. The globule is best known for its ghastly appearance, resembling a collection of ghosts trying to escape from some invisible force. There's also a Ghost Head Nebula, NGC 2080, which is named for 2 white patches it contains called the Eyes of the Ghost. Located 168,000 light-years away in the Milky Way, there's a satellite galaxy known as the Large Magellanic Cloud. It's both a star-forming region and an emission nebula, which is formed from ionized gases. As you'll learn throughout today's video, these are not the only spooky space objects that look like ghosts. Number 7. A Martian Human. For centuries, people have entertained and obsessed over the idea that there could be life on Mars. So naturally, when NASA released images of what appears to be a person on the red planet's surface in 2008, believers saw it as solid evidence that they were right all along. Some even speculated that the individual was alive when the pictures were taken. But scientists offered the far more rational, albeit boring explanation that the human-like figure is nothing more than a rock. They argued that this is just another example of people seeing shapes and objects in clouds, foods, and other things. Writing for Space.com, science blogger Benjamin Radford argued that the fact that people interpreted the object as a human supports the idea that a psychological phenomenon is at play, rather than valid scientific evidence of Martian life. Meanwhile, Radford explained, people failed to perceive other rock formations as possible life forms, even though they could have easily done so, with some of them resembling armadillos, snakes, and other non-human creatures. Astronomer Phil Plait pointed out that the rock in the photo is just a few inches tall, essentially proving that there's no person in the picture. This is a classic example of the human mind's tendency to play tricks on itself and for people to see what they want to see, even when all signs point toward their interpretation being wrong. Do you think there's life somewhere on Mars? Let us know in the comments below, and if you're liking this video, be sure to hit that thumbs up and subscribe button if you haven't already. Number 6. The Great Pumpkin. On October 30th, 2015, the day before Halloween, NASA scientists captured this image of asteroid 2015 TB-145 as it passed by Earth from roughly 480,000 kilometers away. Nicknamed the Great Pumpkin and the Halloween asteroid, this 2,100-foot, skull-shaped mass is believed to be a dead comet. It was discovered just weeks before its Halloween flyby, which is the closest known approach by such a large object. That is until the 2,600-foot asteroid 1999 AN-10 passes by in 2027 from 238,000 miles away. The Great Pumpkin completes a rotation roughly every 3 hours and only reflects 5 to 6% of the sunlight that hits it, according to Space.com. It's only slightly more reflective than charcoal, says astrophysicist Pablo Santos Sanz, who co-authored a study on the ghoulish object. Completing a trip around the sun every 3 years, the Halloween asteroid has a unique oblong orbit but poses no impact threats to the Earth. In other words, it only looks scary with its uncanny resemblance to a human cranium. Number 5. Jackolantern Sun. In an eerie coincidence that happened as Halloween 2014 approached, NASA's Solar Dynamics Observatory captured an image of the sun that looked like an illuminated jack-o'-lantern. The giant star's brightly lit active regions are responsible for the festive characteristics, which resemble the eyes, nose, and crooked mouth that are typical of a carved pumpkin. The image's orange color was created by blending 2 sets of wavelengths, including the 171 angstrom extreme ultraviolet light that appears yellow and the 193 angstrom light, which has a muted gold hue. These wavelengths cannot be seen by the naked eye, so it would be impossible to simply look at the sun, which is a bad idea anyway, and get the same results. A 2019 Sci-Tech Daily article clarifying the facts about the picture pointed out that the shapes we see in the Jackolantern Sun are similar to how we look at clouds and interpret them as looking like various objects, a psychological tendency known as pareidolia. So does the sun have any real connection with Halloween, especially considering the timing of when the image was captured? No, but the coincidences are both creepy and entertaining. Number 4. A menacing face. When astronomers examined a Hubble Space Telescope image captured in late 2019, they were met by what looked like a pair of ghoulish, glowing eyes staring right back at them. Of course, this had nothing to do with the supernatural, but was the product of two galaxies colliding deep in space. The eyes represent the galaxy's cores, and a ring of young blue stars form what looks like the outline of a face. Officially cataloged as ARP Mador 2026-424, the intergalactic crash is a rare example of galaxies crashing into one another head-on. The impact caused their gas, dust, and stars to stretch outward, forming the ring of young stars. There are only a few hundred known ring galaxies, which are formed when a collision occurs at a very specific angle, according to Sci-Tech Daily. It'll take roughly 1 to 2 billion years for the two galaxies to fully merge. The crash is also unique because the galaxies appear to be approximately the same size. Typically, these encounters involve large galaxies consuming smaller ones. By studying how galaxies interact with one another, scientists hope to learn more about how galactic mergers cause them to grow over time. Number 3. Alien shares. In recent years, scientists have increasingly turned their attention towards strange dark spots that dot the surface of Venus. These unexplained splotches, which change over time, were discovered over a century ago, but we still don't know what they are. Some researchers have suggested that they could be a sign of life on the planet. In a 2019 study, experts conceded that all the possibilities they entertained failed to explain what the spots could be made of or what their properties were. The spots contain particles that all appear to be the same size and behave like microorganisms that exist on Earth. Furthermore, scientists determined that between 2006 and 2017, the amount of light the planet absorbs from the light that hits it, known as the albedo, was reduced by half and then began increasing again. These changes were accompanied by a similar reduction in how much solar energy clouds absorbed, directly impacting the amount of circulation in the Venusian atmosphere. Researchers are at a loss to explain the causes behind these dramatic changes, but they believe the strange dark spots may play a role, and even highly respected scientists have gotten on board with the idea that they could contain living organisms. Number 2. Witchhead Nebula. In keeping with its theme of featuring festive images around Halloween, in 2013 NASA published a photo of what looks like the side profile of a screaming witch's face. Captured 900 light-years from Earth by the agency's WISE infrared space telescope, the object in question is actually a collection of baby stars that illuminate the surrounding cloud of dust, giving the formation its seemingly wicked appearance. Known as a reflection nebula like we mentioned earlier, the witch's head is located near the knee of the Orion constellation, hundreds of light-years from Earth. Officially filed under the name IC2118, it cannot be seen by the naked eye and can only be viewed through a telescope thanks to reflected starlight, according to the Lowell Observatory. The brightest star in the Orion constellation and the seventh brightest star in the night sky, dubbed Regal, is largely responsible for lighting up the witch's head. Scientists believe that the nebula is likely the remnant of a massive star explosion known as a supernova, which occurs at the very end stages of a star's life. Like several other examples on today's list, our interpretation of the image reflects a psychological phenomenon called pareidolia, which happens when the human brain recognizes shapes and objects in unrelated pictures. Number 1. Eye of Sauron. Located in the constellation Piscis Austrinus, Fomalhaut is a bright star with at least one planet dubbed Fomalhaut b circulating it. Since its discovery in 2005, Fomalhaut b's strange orbit has perplexed scientists who are also curious about why the regions around the star are populated by large numbers of comets, according to Space.com. At roughly 440 million years old, Fomalhaut is much younger than our 4.5 billion-year-old sun. It has a surface temperature of around 14,840 degrees Fahrenheit and is the 18th brightest star in the sky. Scientists first suspected that there was a planet orbiting Fomalhaut back in 2002. 3 years later, they captured Fomalhaut b in this eerie image reminiscent of the Eye of Sauron, a reference from The Lord of the Rings. For those who are unfamiliar with the trilogy, it's clear that the image looks like a giant, evil-looking red eye. Researchers claimed that this was the first time anyone had taken a picture of a planet in visible light, while skeptics argued that the image was not necessarily a planet, but perhaps it featured a dust cloud. The inability of NASA's Spitzer Space Telescope to capture a picture of it supported this idea. A 2012 study put the debate to rest by proving that Fomalhaut b is in fact a planet. That same year, scientists discovered a massive swarm of up to 83 trillion comets lurking near the Fomalhaut system. Every day, thousands of the comets collide and are destroyed, according to study leader Bram Ack. Fomalhaut's system also contains an unusually high amount of dust, which researchers believe is formed by comet collisions. The materials have a mass equivalent to roughly 110 Earths. Thanks for watching. Which of these photos creeped you out the most? If you'd like to learn more about creepy space photos, let me know in the comments below and be sure to subscribe. Thanks again for joining us, and we'll see you next time right here on American Eye.